Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another epi of League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you for a little bit of week 3. Again, air quotes coming in because LCKs maybe going into week 3, LEC, LCS. It's all on a different timetable, but we're just going to call it week 3 global power rankings. And the theme is the same, and that is shuffling all around the board, especially though that top 5, top 10 area. And we've even got a squad who next week might be on here, and that is the DN Supers, Mark. And I'm not saying this facetiously. I'm not joking. This is a win streak back-to-back against Nongshim, and they've actually looked okay as of late.
Now, let's clarify. That's being on this list, not being in that top section of this list when you're talking about it. But yes, you're right. Important to keep track of these type of things. And one of the teams that does get kind of a honorable mention, moving in that right direction and hot on the trails of everybody else on this list, is that DN Super Squad, who only a few short weeks ago, we were talking about just snapping a long losing streak type of situation and just finally getting off of that slide. Different story now, building up the win streak for this group down here in the lower half of the LCK.
And again, just outside of that top 20, but you look at what's at the bottom of the table here, mid-tier teams in Na'Vi, Shopify, and absolutely slumping World Elite. You're not telling me that DNS could probably take a series against any of those 3 right now?
It's one of those situations where kind of towards that lower end of this table, you're looking at it and absolutely saying nobody here is a lock in this situation. And nobody here is absolutely, completely on the path to keep climbing up this type of list. So there is room for teams to jump in this type of area. And I think that, again, keeping track of a squad like the DN Supers right now seems to be the play in the lower half of the LCK.
And maybe in this 17 spot, you feel more confident in guys at least staying here. And that is both IG and the Ninjas in Pajamas, who leapfrogged them this week. Obviously had the head-to-head. NIP has stayed perfect. IG bounced back with a dominant win against LNG, but did drop that head-to-head, so they're one below. But how about IG rocking? Of all the major region teams in this third split, they have the highest damage per minute. That does not surprise me in the slightest.
No, and that is one of those stats that does truly matter, right? It is one of those ones where I think you go back throughout the history, you find teams that have this type of category of power in that area. Not a lot of them are usually falling by the wayside. They're usually in that upper end of competition. So you got to believe that you can get there if you are IG, if you are NIP even for that matter in the LPL. Both of them should be still aggressive with themselves and with their planning, how they are here in the LPL, because yes, you've taken care of business to get on the radar, to get on the attention of a lot of people at this point and turn things around, but you still got to get through a lot to get yourself one of these spots for the World Championship.
And you're at least looking at, World Elite we just mentioned, and really anyone outside of the top 4 in that top group of the LPL, and you're going, we can beat them. IG can take them down. EDG, winless, all these guys near the bottom. Ain't no problem for IG and NIP to be able to be confident about that. Team Vitality also gets a little bit of a bump. They only played 1 series. It's more that middle tier of the LEC, not looking super fantastic. But Vitality, even with Humanoid gone, I'll give them credit. The vibes are still there. The team atmosphere still looks great, and Knock is still absolutely elite.
It's part of what has me believing that this is going to be a Vitality that can, and I'm going to be cautious about this, build that momentum to being one of these stronger teams within the LEC at this point. You're right to point out the vibes seem good, seem very similar to how things were with Humanoid on that roster, and that's obviously, again, on any team, usually a pretty important factor, and especially a team with Carzzy still on that lineup is going to be an important factor that they get through. And I think that you can build more with this iteration of this roster than you had with Humanoid there right now. So I think that that's kind of the angles that you're looking for on where you can expand. And as you mentioned, Knock is one of those areas that you can lean a little bit more into now with some of those resources, with some of that preparation and playing. And I think that is an avenue that could help explode this Vitality squad further up these rankings.
The meme-filled atmosphere still there. I just don't think Fiesta is as in on the joke as Humanoid. I think some of these jokes he's maybe not fully fluent in meme-glish yet, but Carsey will slowly teach him the ways that he has. Team Secret Whales go up a spot. They didn't even play a match. They're going to be playing in the next couple days. They'll do a seeding qualification in this kind of weird swish stage format over in the LCP, but they have yet to drop a game, let alone a series, through their first three. The big drop on this board, at least, is KT Rolster, who, as we flip the script to the second half of the LCK round robin, they immediately get the rematch against D plus Kia, and it's not any better than the first time around.
No, this is an unfortunate reality, I think, of where we are within the LCK and the scheduling and how that's formatted and everything else. This isn't about really KT, which you can go a separate route and discuss about that. I'm not pooing on anybody doing that, or if that's your opinion. But I think that right now what we're seeing here is KT is just this week's victim of how things are going in the LCK, where things are going to be like this, where 1 week, hey, you've taken down the top dog and you're undefeated, whatever, boom, you're all the one that everyone wants to talk about. Next week rolls around and everybody's taking their win off of you, right? And that's not really the best looking scenario, and especially when you do have a little bit extra to prove in this area as a KT, as a D plus Kia. So you look at that head to head a little bit more intensely. And so to get bounced in that one again on the KT side, not the best feeling.
Now that the Elite Four in the LCK seem to have woken up a little bit here, I'm not sure KT is going to be taking many more games out of them as we move forward. Jiwoo got his debut with the squad, and it, again, was not that great. They were pretty slapped around by the D plus Kia bot lane. The opposite end of that trajectory is JD Gaming in the LPL, who don't look now. 4 series in a row. This is finally starting to look like, after that abysmal 1-4 start, they have seemingly fully bounced back with the big win against BLG, the latest checkmark hurdle that they've gotten through.
And this is one of those kind of just, things that maybe you don't like to admit, but you should have known about JDG heading into this year with young guys like HonQ stepping into major roles. That this is just simply one of the variations, fluctuations that you can have in these performances, but that you had to believe in the talent, and you had to believe in the guys behind the scenes, in the coaching staff and everything else, to get the best out of them at the most important moments. And I think that is what you are seeing from this JDG team that is starting to peak, starting to rise in the LPL at this point. As you mentioned, 4 straight series wins, and none bigger than getting it against the big dog themselves in BLG, the top throne sitters of the region. Getting that type of win in a big series and having big-time play moments from guys like HonQ coming through, that's a big deal for me and JDG.
Yeah, and Zhaozhou as well. Got to shut up the Jax performance. That was a Giga Bin level of Jax throwing down against not Bin, but Bin's team at the very least. Maybe reminiscing about the good old days with him on that side. Last squad on this first board is G2 Esports, who are down 1 spot from the 10 zone. And listen, this is really just a testament that there are 4, dare I say, really good Western teams right now. And this is regular season G2, where it's going to be a little messy. Broken Blade's going to limit test his Jace and realize the limit is just picking the Jace in general for him.
I'm gonna just say that this is kind of a result, just a reality of where you are as G2, but this is not necessarily meant to be some permanent sentence for you. I'm gonna say right now that you have lots of room to climb, to leapfrog even further up this ranking type of situation over your Western brothers in this type of situation. I think is one of the things for G2, and one of the things that we are going to see in the next couple of weeks, and as we move closer and get more attention towards a World Championship run. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the old vibes. Maybe it's the old memes and jokes coming across. But I really like the vibe of having Perks as the head coach for this team right now. And I think that is one of those things that maybe I didn't quite give enough credit initially to what was going on behind the scenes in the environment, the attitude that was going to be there, how this affects someone like Caps and his type of morale and attitude and how things are with the team. I think absolutely it's one of these ones where, sure, you can have some questions about being serious, about really, grinding down to the bolts when you need to in certain tough situations or tough series. But I think right now, the vibes, the attitude around G2 are things that I like to see from this team, and Perks is a big part of that infusion for them.
Again, it's more a positive for other teams why G2 is outside of that top 10 when you're looking at three other Western teams that don't have a blemish on their record yet in spring. I mean, Lion and Team Liquid both have not dropped a single game, let alone a series. KC has only dropped a single game, but I mean, Lion is doing this without their best player, and I mean, Dokla has been pretty rock solid. He's had some consistency issues, but he's been rock solid, and Berserker still remains clearly the best AD carry in North America.
Yeah, and it's been a good homecoming. We'll call it that way. The reverse homecoming for Berserker, coming back to the LCS after going home to the LCK. So we'll take him over here, and he is thriving once again in this region, proving himself to be that top option when he is here in the LCS. And things are going right for Lion in that regard without Inspired in that starting lineup. And I'm just saying, can't wait until he is back. And that's not meant to be anything against how they're playing with Armeo and everything else, just that I know that when he's back, that means we're pretty much guaranteed to be having the road show. And that is when the attitude and the environment's going to be great. I don't think we've talked about this a little bit, where it's going to be. It's not going to be, obviously, the largest of venues, and it is in Mexico. But Lion, don't worry. They're aware. They're smart. They're proactive about this. They're taking steps to locally have different events, different live events around the United States for that. Would love to see if there's a little bit of Canada inclusion. Maybe we can nudge into there as well as for North America. But still, keeping track of these things and keeping track of these teams. Team Liquid doing well. And I think that's one of those ones that scares me to a lot of the international community, because you didn't get quite really the full exposure, the full taste of what Team Liquid can do on the international stage. And we are seeing right now here in the LCS, this is the best iteration of Team Liquid. And if they can bring that to the international stage, then you got another squad to worry about from the LCS.
I'm just glad they've carried some of that momentum that they did get at first stand with some solid play. And listen, they're the only team of all the major regions with a team KDA above 2.0. 2.0 is usually the crazy marker for a team dominating, and they're the only team that hasn't given up a Baron or a first turret yet. So I know it's not the stiffest competition. They haven't played Lion or the big dogs in the LCS yet, but they have been about as close to perfect as you can be through their first three series.
Well, it's just one of those clear type of, life tests for this Team Liquid team, and that life of, whether you're going to be that champion type of level was the test of, do you get MVP level quid? And that is one of the first things that failed for this Team Liquid squad earlier in the year. That's one of the biggest check marks right now for this squad. You've got Jan performing the way that he needs to for them. Jose Diodo has been great in the jungle. You're getting LCK level performances out of Morgan. These are all things that you needed as Team Liquid to be this top level, and you've shown it multiple weeks now coming out of that, MSI EWC type of little speed bump we have here in our year. So absolutely thrilled with Team Liquid in that regard, and you can throw a similar type of logic towards Karma and Corp and how good and solid they have looked so far through the LEC schedule.
Yeah, I mean, KC honestly looks just like going through the motions, ready for playoffs already at this point, and still picking up 2-0s like it's nothing. The two LPL squads here in the 10-6 zone. AL gets a little slap on the wrist for needing 48-minute Game 3 to get past winless Edward Gaming, but they survived, so it's just down one spot. And then as KT has floundered out of the top 10, Top Esports, led by their own win against BLG, and almost more importantly, following that up by not throwing a dud in their immediate next series, which means our Copium Pouch and Hopium Pouch for Top Esports. It's getting refilled, Mark.
It's the dangerous time of year for knowing again that we are getting closer to the international event, and more of this talk and focus will be about that. And if top esports is in this type of form, in this type of position, well, it's an unavoidable topic. You got to be looking at them and whether they are a real factor or if this is just simply an LPL mirage that just exists within the LPL as this miracle, and all of a sudden there's nothing in front of me at all on the international stage type of situation from this top esports squad. I'm holding out, and I know that it's not the best position to be in and that you only got a couple more weeks that you can hold out before you really do need to come to that decision or conclusion about this team. They're making it a difficult pickle. I'll just put it that way.
I mean, the truth is, the more dominant they are in the LPL, the harder the fall it will be if they don't perform internationally, right? If they sweep their way through playoffs, dumpster BLG 3-0 in finals, well, now all of a sudden the expectation is like top 4 at Worlds, and it's like climbing the mountain and then jumping off, but forgetting that you don't have your parachute. That's what kind of happens with top esports when they go international.
It's an unfortunate thing where I think despite the kind of history of his career and banking on some previous accolades and his skill set that we have seen, it's going to lead to a lot of questions about Jackie Love being one of those premier guys, someone that you build an entire roster around, and whether that is enough to get it done on the international stage. I think that is going to be that conversation on whether it's a success or not this year. That is where you're going to be turning towards, and that's quite a crossroads, I think, for the LPL in that regard to look at the bottom lane.
We're into that VIP top 5, and yes, the musical chairs continue. All 5 spots shifting around this week. The biggest, GenG and D Plus basically swapping spots, and that's with D Plus, returning with now basically a 4-0 against KT in back-to-back series. But GenG so badly dismantled KT. They beat Hanwha Life. It wasn't just the Chovy show. Other guys leveling up, and GenG didn't take long to get back to the top of this table.
Nope, just a week and a half at this point to get that bounce back for GenG, and again, proving how things are going to be in this LCK. And the question is going to be for them, do you believe in what we have just seen, this little dose of strength from this GenG roster, or a GenG roster that is not just Chovy hard carrying this team across the finish line? It is all the other contributions, all the other special things from the other members of why you want to talk about this team. Or is it going to be the other noise from the LCK? Is it going to be a T1? Is it going to be a Hanwha Life? Is it DK? Is it KT, the team that's just been burned by everyone? It's not going to be KT. The most outside of outside chances. But you have to mention it just because of how crazy things have been in this top tier of the LCK. But you absolutely need to, at these moments, right, when we're doing lists like this, stop, take stock of what you've had and what you've seen. And for GenG, that is the dominant form that has thrown them into that top spot of the power rankings.
And let's be honest, despite GenG taking that top spot, this was the week, the opportunity for Billy to take that spot. As there's all this chaos still going in within the LCK, you put together a dominant week again, and we can talk about BLG at the top of the table, but they come up short against JDG. Flandra makes his debut to a mixed bag of results, and we see, okay, Knight has a 16 kill Immaculate Cinder performance, great, but when he doesn't have S-tier Knight performances like he does in the Ahri game, BLG looks like a different squad.
Yeah, it wasn't enough, and I think that's where you got to look again at the other parts of this team. Yes, you can absolutely talk about Knight and some of these losses individually and look at him and what you're getting, but it still is kind of one of these ones where you go, okay, well, can't someone else step up? Shouldn't someone else be that difference maker at that point? And someone else has been a difference maker on this BLG team at times. You can look at Viper, you could look at Bin when he has been in that lineup in the top side. Jun even as well has been that guy. Nobody was this past week, really, for BLG in these series that they're dropping, and especially then you bring in the conversation about talking about Flandre and his debut and where it was supposed to be and how it wasn't. I think we're looking at the Wenbo Wen situation here for BLG pretty soon, and that's not about, that's kind of crazy that we're not even bringing Bin into that conversation, talking about that and what he could bring. I think that you're looking at Wenbo and that era or small period of time with BLG as kind of maybe your best option moving forward.
Yeah, and Wen for Wenbo is probably their next series. I feel like maybe they give Flandra another go, or maybe there's a sub in between games during a series. But yeah, Wenbo looked much better than that debut series for Flandra. And then the other two squads here. Listen, we did the LCK rankings. I'm listening. We're listening to some of you guys talking. Hanwha Life. They get the win against T1, but it's without owner, and they lost 3 in a row before that, whereas T1 had the dominant win against T+. They've already beaten GenG, so think right now, despite losing that head-to-head, T1 has looked better than Hanwha overall.
Yeah, I think that is a relatively fair conclusion to make, and it's one of those ones where, again, how heavy you want that penalty to be in a head-to-head situation on what it puts you in front of the other and how much that takes away from all your other performances, whatever, when you're examining them in that situation. And for me as well, when you do bring in that conversation about, well, yes, but it was Painter in there, which is quite a different scenario than having owner there and one of these ones. Very questionable. At the end of the day, we've already talked about that part of that equation in that matchup. But yes, I think that is one of those ones where you can reevaluate and put T1 ahead of Hanwha Life, but know that these are the two next up really right away in the LCK, the ones that, hey, anyone takes a slip up here from GenG or either one or of T1 or Hanwha Life, the others are right there behind you, and they're ready to jump you in any of these spots.
Yeah, the reality is, you put any of these top 4 in the LCK, you slam them into a best-of-5 playoff series right now, you're not going more than 60-40 favorite odds for any of those matchups. That's still how tightly contested, single series separation between these top 4 have. And it's probably going to be several weeks until we get any real separation, which is going to be a spicy finish. But that is it today for Liga Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Absolute stunners. Thanks for hanging out as always. Catch you on that flippity flip.